Welcome into a new edition of the Going Deep podcast. I'm your host today, Kevin Massare, here with Mike Bundt and producer AJ's on the screen today with special guest Tommy Doyle coming at you very shortly to talk to you a little bit about everything. And we're really looking forward to it. Sponsored by Sons of Erie. Get out there, check them out, www.instagram.com/Sons of Erie. Going to be an action-packed show. Going to go through a few things, finish up with a little bit of what we expect at the end of the show, but we'll be right back at you shortly.
Josh Allen, looking deep, going deep.
To me, talking about the Bills, what else would you rather be doing?
We're hoping to add a new dimension to the Cover One network.
Slings it deep downfield, and it's caught inside the 20.
Right now, I just want to talk about this championship level. I've never had a championship caliber team to talk about.
I want to focus more on the storylines each week. What are the big stories going on with the Bills? What are thoughts, commentary? How do these things impact Buffalo?
Deep drop, deep throw, and it is hauled in for the touchdown. Allen deep to the end zone and caught for a touchdown. Play action. Allen deep downfield, wide open.
Mike, we have an action-packed show today. First and foremost, Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I wish the weather was a little bit better back home. We had these 80-degree days over the weekend. Now it's snowing here in Buffalo, but other than that, doing great and excited to talk some football tonight.
Yeah, AJ, glad to have you on the screen today. How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
Good, man. Feeling a little bit better. Still a little congested. Had a long weekend, but I'm excited to talk some ball today. Have Tommy Doyle joining us here in a bit, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so lots going on. I mean, we're just 10 days to draft, around 9 to 10 days till draft, depending on what day. So the Going Deep podcast will be covering day 3 Saturday. So a week from Saturday, we'll be on air with you then to go through that. So we're looking forward to all the events coming up next week. And it's my honor to welcome Tommy Doyle to the show. Tommy, how are you doing today? Thanks for coming on.
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Thanks for popping on, man.
Yes, sir. Of course.
How you feeling, man? How's everything going? How's rehab going? How's everything going in your world?
I'm good. I'm rehabbing this knee injury from last year. It's slow and steady and just continuing to progress and get better. And yeah, that's the goal, slow and steady.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Slow
right?
and steady wins the race.
For sure.
So, Tommy, I want to let you know you are on with some MAC guys right here. Kevin went to UB. University of Buffalo. I went to Ohio University, so I hope you don't hold that against either of us.
Wow.
I know
my rival schools, though. So you ain't go to Miami of Ohio, baby. That's the best MAC school.
we both have nice brick buildings. I'll say that. But just wanted to get started. Obviously, with the draft coming up soon, what are some of your memories of when you got drafted, and what was that experience like for you when you heard your name from the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, I remember I was back home in Minnesota. I had a little draft party with some of my closest family and friends, and I just remember getting the phone call and seeing a New York area code. And I think the Jets had the next pick, and I thought I was getting drafted by the Jets. It didn't even occur to me that Buffalo's in New York. But it was just a special moment, something I'll never forget. My whole family was there. It was just a cool moment in my career for sure.
Tommy, that's awesome to hear that. Thankfully, you ended up as a Buffalo Bill. Hopefully, you can take that next step next year. I got a quick question for you. In terms of do you have any weird or interesting pregame ritual or postgame ritual that you do on the field before a game? Anything interesting? I know the quarterback that you protect. Says that like he throws up before every game. That's like what he does, kind of. Is there anything interesting or unique that you do prior to game day?
I would say I'm more of I always put my right cleat on before my left. That's definitely a big thing. I even do it with my shoes now. That's kind of my thing. But other than that, nothing super crazy set in stone that I do. I kind of have my game day routine of stretching and things like that I'll do. But kind of my superstitious thing would be putting the right cleat on first. It has to be done, or else I do it every time. Right cleat first.
What cleats you rocking?
I wear they're called the Nike Force Savages, I believe. They're kind of Nike's lineman cleat.
Nice. That's super cool. So, obviously, we're glad to have you on here, and we know you help represent a really cool event over with Jeff Brady over Sons of Erie. What can you tell us about that event? I know taking over from Harrison Phillips, kind of what more can you say about that? What kind of thing are you guys working on? Like, just talk to us a little bit about that and, what you guys have working on.
Yes. So it is the Ilio, DiPaolo, and Jeff Brady's and Harrison Phillips, their annual bocce ball tournament. It's an awesome time. It supports a great cause. I believe Harrison Phillips will be there in town for the event too. And it's really awesome that Harrison kind of started that, and what everything Ilio DiPaolo has done for the Bills and the scholarship fund and Dennis DiPaolo, and that restaurant. So it's a super fun event. It brings the community out. Playing bocce ball is something I didn't even know how to do until last year, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, for sure. What's the most what's something like super interesting about Buffalo for you? Like, obviously you found out it was in New York. What else can you say is that you've learned over your few years here? Like, is it the food, the people? Like, what have you found to be like unique about here? Being from Minnesota, obviously playing in Miami, Ohio. Like, what have you found to like about here?
I would say, for one, the fans are awesome. I played at Miami of Ohio. Sadly, sometimes it's not like I was playing in front of sold out crowds.
We know. We know.
To come to Buffalo and like play in front of a fan base like this that is so loyal, and there's so much history with this team. That's really special and something cool for me. Also, like you mentioned, the food, there are some great restaurants, some great Italian spots. Obviously, there's the wings. You got to try all the wings.
Where's your favorite? You got to pick one.
Put me on the spot.
You have to do it. It's a question.
I'm gonna say two. I got a tie. I think the Cajun honey butter barbecue from Barbill. It's just hard to top that. But I also really like the wings from Doc Sullivan's and 40 Thieves.
Good choices there, definitely. So I have a question for you. Obviously, last year had to be difficult sitting out the majority of the season with the injury. Is there anything that you can gain from that experience or perspective off the field that can help you heading into this season? I know it sounds like a weird question, but did you gain any perspective from that experience, and what can you take away from that?
No, that is a great question. Ultimately, at first, tearing your ACL, having such a major injury like that, it is difficult. It is hard to overcome and get back, and it takes a lot of work. But there is so much good to come out of it. Going through an obstacle like that, a struggle like that, it just allows for more growth and something to overcome. Just off the top of my head, it really makes you prioritize, your body and getting it better every day. That's something I've learned. I'm so on top of trying to stay on top of the things I need to stay on top of now. And then just perspective. I mean, it can be easy to take things for granted, and then to have it taken away from you. And, it does give you a fresh perspective. It allows, you kind of have more empathy for guys who have gone through major injuries as well. And at the end of the day, it's a rite of passage, and without a test, there's no testimony. So it's just an obstacle I have to overcome to get back to playing at a high level.
And speaking about playing at that high level, your team, the Bills, have one of the more recognized offensive line coaches in the league, in Aaron Kromer. What is it like playing for him? Obviously, he's much heralded, does some things differently than some other O-line coaches. What is it like being an offensive lineman under him?
Kromer, he's an awesome, great guy off the field, great coach on the field. You can tell he really cares about his players, which is cool. I think the biggest thing you can take away from Kromer is some of the things he does to help you with technique. And he is very open-minded to coaching every player a little bit differently, which I think is is something that makes him so special. But he really understands angles in the run game and aiming running backs, aiming points, and kind of helping you have a better understanding of what's going on out there.
Awesome. Obviously, Aaron Kramer's done a huge help to you so far at the professional level. But what coach along the way, in your journey, obviously you had the setback with the ACL, but you've had, probably many fond memories growing up. I have two questions and they're kind of paired together. What coach for you growing up was kind of the biggest teacher for you in terms of your style of play or like how you developed? And then on top of that, what moment or what time period in your life did you truly think maybe I can do this at the professional level? Like, is there a moment or a specific time where you really thought to yourself, I can do this at the professional level?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say the coach that impacted me the most was my college offensive line coach, George Barnett. He is now the offensive line coach at Iowa. So he is a great coach. When I got to college as a freshman at Miami of Ohio, I played defensive end in high school. So I kind of was a young, tall, skinny kid stepping onto campus, having never played offensive line before. So that kind of just goes to show you what Coach Barnett can do. He kind of mentored me into NFL offensive line prospect, and he not only did he help me on the field, he helped me off the field too. I have nothing but great things to say about Coach Barnett.
And then what moment was there, if there is one, what moment did you realize, I can do this? I can play at the NFL level. Was there a moment in college, high school where you really started to I'm going to take that next step and really start? Has that been a dream since you were a kid, or how'd that go for you?
I'll be honest, it definitely was not in high school, probably. My dad, he was dropping me off at college and being like, yeah, I wasn't quite sure how you pan out in college football. So, growing and maturing and developing to do. But as I got older in college, it was always in the back of my mind. And, I think after my 2019 season where I transitioned over to left tackle and had a great year, I realized that I could do this. So I was probably after that season, I would say.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Is there a specific, speaking of left tackle or any position, is there one that you like to play, like one that you like to dig in? Are you versatile? Like, what do you like to say about yourself in terms of, left tackle, left guard? Like, really, where do you see yourself going forward? And
wherever, left guard, right tackle, left tackle, jumbo tight end. My goal is to be ready at any position. If anything happens, if there's an injury, whatever, like I need to be ready to play at a high level, plug and play, and help the team win. That's my goal and objective.
How was that playoff touchdown? How did that feel for you?
That was awesome. That was cool moment. Really cool moment.
Yeah, it's sweet.
We practiced the play. I'm like, are they really going to call it though? Or?
They called it. They called it. It's a great play.
Where would that rank on your all-time favorite moments? Is that near the top? Is that the top, or
it's got to be up there? It's got to be up there.
Yeah, for sure. Now, being a big analytics guy myself, and most of Cover One is fairly analytical, one thing I stick on to and I love is RAS, and yours was ridiculous. You have a 9.9. Is that something you thought about in the pre-draft process? You did really well athletically. Is that something you focus on and just natural for you? But your testing was amazing. So is that something you knew about back then, or just kind of happened organically?
Yeah, I felt like I was a pretty good athlete, and going into the draft process and combine training, I was hitting some good times and numbers, and talking with my agent, we knew pro day would probably help me out to show the NFL that I was athletic enough to play in it. So yeah, at the end of the day, I'd say yes.
That's awesome.
Now, going to Miami, Ohio, you're 6'8". Did you ever play any basketball before college or anything like that?
So crazy story. I played hockey. That was my main sport. Yeah. I grew up in Edina, Minnesota. It is right outside of Minneapolis, and it is a hockey town through and through. If you make the high school hockey team there, you are going to play college hockey. So I grew up in that environment where you learn how to skate as you learn how to walk. So, there's outdoor hockey rinks all over the place, and it was one of my main passions. And just as I grew got bigger, stronger, older, I transitioned more to football, but that was kind of my first passion. And I thought I was going to the NHL. Was my
Yeah, I mean, being in Buffalo, that has to feel pretty natural with all the hockey fans around you. But Miami, Ohio, I was going to say, being 6'8", I'm surprised they never reached out to you to see if you wanted to play any basketball there, and obviously good hockey school as well. When you were in college, I know this is a little off topic, were all the athletes close to each other in the different sports? Did you ever hang out with any of the hockey guys or the basketball guys, or did you mostly stick with the guys on your team?
Yeah, it was definitely the athletes. We would hang out a good amount. I mean, my closest buddies were obviously on the football team, but we definitely get together with some of the hockey guys and some of the basketball guys for sure.
Yeah, sweet. Now, what would you say like the biggest difference was from the MAC to the NFL? Is it the speed of play? Is it something certain? Is it, I guess, talk to us about like that transition for you just a few years ago, and like how have you felt that that's gone now? Like obviously you've had a lot of practice now, a lot of classroom training. You've been around some of the best. Like how did that transition go from the MAC to the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big transition. You go from playing college athletes to now all of a sudden you're lining up against a defensive end that's an 11-year vet and, knows all the ins and outs of how to beat you, So I think it just forces you to like rise and evolve and improve and level up your game. And, in college in the MAC, there's some games you don't have the toughest matchup. That's just how it is. And then there's some games where you have a great matchup. And now once you get to the NFL, it's a tough matchup every down, and you have to be consistent and play at a high level consistently. And, if you have one bad play, you can't let that turn into two bad plays. And then as you mentioned, just the experience, being in the classroom, getting the reps, feeling more comfortable and confident out there. That's huge too.
Did you carry a chip on your shoulder coming out of the MAC at all, going to the NFL? I know a lot of times there will be players from smaller conferences that'll say, I was overlooked or I wanted to prove myself when I got to the league. Guys like Kevin and myself, we obviously have a ton of respect for the MAC. We've seen a bunch of players go to the NFL and have success in the NFL from the MAC. But did you ever feel like that was something that you carried with you when you went to the league?
Yeah, I feel like it's something I've kind of carried with me even in college, I came into college as a tall, skinny kid. People weren't sure if I could play offensive line or not. And, from my freshman year on, I was trying to prove that wrong, I felt like. But at the end of the day, I think the best thing to do is be internally motivated and not focus too much on all that. But absolutely, there was a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. And, not a lot of big schools recruited me. Both my parents were athletes at the University of Minnesota. My mom was an all Big Ten volleyball player there, and my dad played baseball there. So I was a little bit salty the Gophers didn't offer me. Yeah, I've always definitely had that a little bit.
Well, they probably would have done differently if they knew how things would play out. I'm sure Miami, Ohio was just thrilled to have you there. Now, I know I did say I'm a Bobcat, Kevin's a Bull. What were some of from your playing days at Miami? Did anything ever stand out from any of your MAC competition? I know at Ohio, they always talk about the Battle of the Bricks, and they always talk about Muck Miami. Did you feel any hatred towards Ohio, or is that more manufactured at this point?
There was the Ohio student section was pretty ruthless when we play over there. I definitely felt some hatred over there, I think my best memory, though, was in 2019. We won the MAC championship, so that was hard to beat that moment.
Speaking of matchups you were talking about earlier, the matchups that you've in the MAC, sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was hard, and then taking it to that next level. Across the board, there's one, defensive end or D tackle come to mind that you've played against that was probably one of your toughest matchups in your career so far?
Last training camp at Rochester, being able to like duke it out with Von Miller, that's probably up there, I would say, with the toughest matchups.
Is he as good as advertised?
His anticipation off the snap count is so impressive and next level. And like I said, he's been doing this for a while. If you do one thing, he's going to do another thing. If you try to beat him with this thing, he's got another move in his bag. So he's an intelligent pass rusher.
Now, can you learn things from, like, I know they're different positions and you go against these guys every day, but can you learn things from going against these defensive ends all the time and in practices and games? Is there things you can take away and actually learn from the opponent you're going against, and you use that for your game?
You mean like learn from them that they're telling you?
Yeah, like they do. You know, you watch a film and you watch what they're doing. Does that help create an influence for you to become like a better player? Like watching them play and then like learning from them and your reps against them. Can you learn from that and become like a better player?
You have to learn from the tape and get better. I mean, that's a crucial part of development, I think, is being in the film room post-practice and going through your reps and seeing what happened. You know, a lot of the times, hey, they beat me inside. Okay, well, I'm looking at the tape. I really overmoved. Or, hey, they got my edge. Yeah, he did a great job swatting my hand, but I need to strike more violently and grab some cloth and get it in there. You know, that's a huge part of development, is being able to go back in the film room, sit down, evaluate what happened, and build from that.
And just kind of building off of what he was just saying right there. Sorry, Kev. Obviously, there's the big mental aspect and there's the physical aspect. And I guess my final question I would have here, what I guess is more important of the two? Do you think it's the mental aspect of the game or the physical aspect? Obviously, you need a combination of both. But if you had to rely more on one or the other, what direction would you lean on?
Yeah, I would say that the physicals are important to get you here. You need to have some level of that, but at the end of the day, the mental outweighs the physical. At the end of the day, I think that's where you can separate yourself.
That's absolutely true. What do you feel about Rochester? You brought up Rochester a little bit earlier. What do you feel about, I think they renewed St. John Fisher again. What is your opinion on going out, doing that in the dorms, like a D3 college? Like, how does that feel to be with everybody? Like, is that a good bonding experience? I know, Coach McDermott has talked about it being so. Like, what is your opinion on like Rochester in general, being over there with the guys and just kind of hunkering down as compared to being back at your place in Buffalo?
Yeah, I think it was great. I was impressed with the setup they have over there. The cafeteria and food is awesome. Like you mentioned, the bonding with the teammates. I mean, we're all living in the dorm together. We're all going through a hard fall camp, hard practices. We're all in the mud together. I mean, that's a huge, bonding portion of the season. And it feels like you're back in college again, hanging out with the boys in the dorm. So it was a cool experience. And also, I mean, the fans were awesome there. Every practice, I think there was like a couple thousand people there. That was pretty cool to see that as well.
Yeah, it's wild. Tickets sell out. They've been doing it for a while. I know probably caught a couple COVID years in there with not doing it, but it's definitely been pretty staple in the Rochester area and something that they've been doing, many, many years now. I know I grew up going to training camp with many different regimes of players. It was always a really great atmosphere for players to interact with kids and families. And it was always really neat to see like up close and personal. And I thought it was always a really good idea for the team to get out there and do it. So that was always fun. Now, when it comes to training camp specifically, as we're a little ways away now, do you think you'll be ready? Like, are you on par for that? Like, how is that going in terms of, do you think you'll be able to see the season start date? Like, what's your expectation?
Yeah, my expectation is I'm preparing to get ready to be, play at a high level for fall camp. So that's the goal. And it's got to take it one day at a time, control the controllables, and slow and steady race to get there.
That's for sure right. Well, we're really looking forward to, I know we'll run into each other at the bocce tournament in a couple of months. We do have a quick promo to show you from their end. So if everyone just wants to take a quick peek at this great promo.
Yeah, we're here, had an amazing relationship with Dennis and Ilio through my time here. And Jeffrey mentioned, how do we want to get more involved and what can we continue to do to support your foundation? My biggest thing when I went to free agency, I was so scared that my foundation wasn't going to be able to continue here because volunteers would pull out or sponsors would pull out. And this event here is going to put on, 1 or 2 full camps and activities for my kids to go the rest of this season, even though I'm not here in person, for that to continue to be carried on by guys guys like Tommy and some other teammates who are here, friends of all of ours, family with us, and willing to continue to grow my foundation, continue to grow the relationship that the Ilio DiPaolo Scholarship Fund has with us, and make a difference in our community of Western New York.
So really cool event coming forward. Anything else you have about that, or like anything, like I know you get to interact with some teams, some plays, like anything else you can say about the tournament?
Be there. You got to show up. There'll be some Bills players there. It'll be a good time. Bocce ball is a great, fun little sport. So I hope to see you all there.
Will
Awesome.
do. Thank you for coming on.
Tommy, we really appreciate it. Yeah, we really appreciate you spending 30 minutes with us popping on. And, thank you so much. And anything else you'd like to say to the fans?
Go Bills, baby.
There you go. Thanks, Tommy. Really appreciate you coming on, man.
You guys having me on.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Tommy.
So it's great to have Tommy on the show. Really good perspective from inside the team there, Mike, and really looking forward to what he can do in training camp, taking it one day at a time now. So what are your first initial reactions off of kind of his experience and his journey?
I mean, it's always good to hear from a player and hear about their experiences in Buffalo. Obviously, a lot of players go through different journeys in their lives. Some are the 5-star route where they go into college and they're already stars based on their high school experiences, and they know they're going to go pro. And then you have other guys that a little under the radar. And Kev, I think you and I are a little bit more familiar with those type of guys, having gone to MAC schools and seen and known and talked to those guys. But it was really cool to see to hear from Tommy Doyle and find out that he grew up loving hockey. That was his first passion, and really not saying he had a chip on the shoulder, but wanted to go to University of Minnesota, didn't get that opportunity like his parents, and then really killed it at Miami, changing positions. And he's taken that opportunity to become an NFL player. And right now, obviously hoping to recover well from this injury and go out there and prove to the Bills coaching staff that he deserves an opportunity to earn his time on this field. So really great story from him. And as you mentioned, an incredible athlete. That RAS score is tremendous for him. So excited to see what he can do for the Bills, and hopefully he can continue stepping up as the years go on.
Yeah, I really think it was cool to see.
AJ, so, he mentioned him.
Oh,
no, I really think he mentioned himself being like the sub tight end in sub packages. So, really having a big role on the team. So what are your opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, his willingness to play at every position, I think, was pretty cool. How, I thought maybe he would come out and say, I'm really comfortable at this spot. But his ability to be willing to play and name every position, say he'd be the jumbo tight end, was really cool. And then I also thought it was cool that he didn't really think he could make the NFL when he was a high schooler. And, talking about that journey and saying, it wasn't really until college where he thought, I can do this thing. His dad, like he said, his dad kind of sent him off and said, whatever happens. But it was really cool seeing that, because there's different journeys for everybody. Like Mike said, some are 5-star athletes and they're going places right off the get, and they think they can make the pros really at a young age, or they're doing really well. So it's pretty cool to see a guy that took a little bit longer to realize that he can do it, and he still went out and did it.
For sure. Well, it's now just 9 days until we'll be here live for day one of the draft. Lots of things that could happen from now until then. There's still a lot of things to talk about, but if you look forward to day one of the draft, we'll be here right at you live all day. The Air Raid Hour will be on for their live show on Thursday. On next Friday will be Ant's show. He'll be on here. A lot of panelists will be joining for both, and then we'll be live Saturday to run the Saturday show. We'll be here Friday for a pregame show too. We'll head up and talk about all the prospects. Maybe there's some trades. We will all reshuffle our board. So we'll be here on the pregame to day 2 as well next Friday. So it's great to hear Tommy is rehabbing to be ready for the start of the season. He's doing amazing work to get ready for that. So Mike, I'm going to bounce it to you real quick. What do you feel about this offensive line? This is an offensive line special now going into other topics. What do you feel about this offensive line in totality? Lots of good interior players on the roster. Where do you stand with this line as it sits?
Yeah, as I've said on previous shows, I'm okay with the way the line currently sits. I think it would be all right if they added another right tackle. I don't think it's a necessity in the first round, but I look at left tackle. Deion Dawkins is a stalwart. You know what you're going to get out of him. I like the upgrades that they've made at left guard, bringing in Connor McGovern, Dave Edwards, Mitch Morse. You know what you're going to get out of him at center. Obviously, Ryan Bates is a good starting right guard. We'll see if he can take his game to another level. The real question mark for majority of fans is Spencer Brown at right tackle. But as you and I have said, you and I both think that the Bills are going to go forward with him as their starting right tackle going into the season. Now, that doesn't mean that we're right, but they definitely speak glowingly of him when they have the opportunity. Last year, obviously impacted by injuries. I don't think they want to move on from a third-round pick from 2 years ago that has the athletic profile that Spencer Brown has. Now, am I willing to say that he's guaranteed to become a good starter in the NFL? I don't think I'm that far, but I just don't think I'm at the point where at 27, I think they're going to get someone that will instantly deserve to start ahead of Spencer Brown in the lineup. You look at some of the guys that are being mocked in this draft. Is a Darnell Wright really going to fall to 27? I don't know. It doesn't seem likely at this point. And when you talk about some of the other guys that'll go before him, if not Darnell Wright, is there really someone else that you would want to take at 27 that would start ahead of Spencer Brown at this point? I'm not sure. So overall, I think what the Bills have is an average offensive line that has the ability to play at a higher level if they play to their best, and has the ability to play to being a slightly below offensive line if they play to their worst. As fans, we're going to hope that we get the better results, but I don't think it's going to be a repeat of last year. I think there was other factors besides just the offensive line that played a role in some of their struggles.
Absolutely, Mike. So as you kind of look into all of the different options that the Bills have next Thursday, being kind of, we obviously had some press conferences today with Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, and plenty of players. Real quickly, one that came up by Von Miller was DeAndre Hopkins and his constant communications and how he'd like to be a Bill. You heard him reference the OBJ stuff, though, and say, like, yes, but we saw how OBJ went with that scenario. But we'll see how that all develops over the next 8 days. I still think the Bills are in play with OBJ off the board now. And as we get closer to the draft, I do believe that they're still very much in play to make a move at receiver, especially if the Bills decide to trade down, maybe go defensive tackle, maybe go linebacker, and maybe go every other route. They could entertain the position of let's re-engage or continue to engage with the Cardinals for DeAndre Hopkins. So that's something to look out for too. Thought that was still interesting that both the player just recently said he'd play in Buffalo with his little game he played just recently on that clip, and then with Von's comments, very much so that he's probably still.
What you got to question is the interest mutual? Obviously, we know DeAndre Hopkins is interested in playing for the Bills, but are the Bills genuinely interested in adding DeAndre Hopkins? Because like you said, you saw the video. He's open to it. Von Miller's adding that he wants to be a Bill. But Tim Graham recently on his podcast a few weeks ago said all of the smoke right now is coming from DeAndre Hopkins' camp, and it's not coming from the Bills. That doesn't mean the Bills didn't check in and do some due diligence, but do you really believe the Bills are all in on this, or is it one of those where, well, I guess if he falls and they're willing to take a 5th-round pick for him, then we'll obviously be open to it?
Yeah, I think it's all about the compensation. It always has been. It always has been. We just saw Allen Robinson on a huge contract. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is a lot better, but still a big contract, a player that can be a receiver too. style when playing well went for a 7th swap. So, you saw Brandon Cooks go for a marginal compensation. So I believe the Bills are like, well, we don't value him right now as a day 2 pick. It just is what it is. If you come back to the table for us and, maybe even a 4 or a 5, Bean said it today. Like, that's the part they do take away from him. He said it today, like, sure, I'll use those picks, but I don't want to give up 1, 2s, and 3s. So I think that that's accurate in a sense, and that kind of lines up with the trades he's made, like for Naeem Hines. I think that that's very accurate with trades he's willing to give away. If they're willing to play park with, play ball in a park with a day 3 pick, I do believe that could speed up quicker and the Bills would get closer to moving that down the road. But I'm assuming, whatever Tim Graham knew a couple of weeks ago, maybe he was told that, the compensation was a 2nd round pick, and the Bills are just, they're not there in that range. But that doesn't mean, bearing something different happening, that doesn't mean that 2nd round ask could go down to a 5th by the time day 2 rolls around. So, it's something to keep an eye on, especially if for some reason the receivers are gone and the Bills decide to go a different direction. I think that will be the best way to go. And in my opinion, that they could entertain this in just a week or so from now. So, AJ, your opinion on the offensive line room. What are you thinking of? Which your opinions going forward on the offensive line?
Yeah, so here's where I'm at with the whole thing. I believe if a Broderick Jones or Anton Harrison or a Darnell Wright are at 27, if one of those 3 fall, because I think Skansky will be gone, and I think Dwan Jones would be a reach kind of at 27. I think you would get him in the early 2nd. So if one of those 3 are there, I don't think you can pass up on it. And if you select him and he beats out Spencer Brown at the right tackle position, that's cool. If he doesn't, you have depth. Deion Dawkins has a couple years left of his contract, so there's always that option as well. So that's where I stand. If one of those 3 aren't there at 27, then I'm okay with a Bergeron in the 2nd or 3rd, or a Steen, a Seam Richard. Yeah, Jalen Duncan. Like, I'm fine with like those mid-round guys that could come in and bring in some competition, but I just couldn't pass up. And I don't know. I mean, Bean said best player available, and then McDermott kind of like backtracked. It was like, what does that mean? Like in his press conference. So they're just saying stuff. But I think at 27, if one of those 3 fall, I think you have to do it just because of the uncertainty of Spencer Brown. I know he was a 3rd round pick, but so was Terrell Bernard. What are the plans for them? I don't think that really matters at this point. I think it's more of you gotta protect your quarterback the best you can. If it is Spencer Brown, good for him. I think he deserves a shot at least in camp. But if it's not, and it's a rookie that comes in and wins the job, then so be it. But that's kind of where I'm at. I don't think it's like the biggest need, but I think they need to address it at some point.
I disagree with you a little bit, and I know this is actually a conversation that we've been talking about in Cover 1. So
yeah,
you're not wrong. I'm not wrong. We just have differing opinions on this. I do think there's a big difference between Terrell Bernard being a 3rd round pick and Spencer Brown being a 3rd round pick. Terrell Bernard was a 3rd round pick that they stashed on their defense that barely saw time as a rookie, that there is a lot of questions and uncertainty about his future. Spencer Brown was a 3rd round pick that they took, and they instantly wanted to have him get playing time and to see what they could have out of him. To me, when you're drafting a guy like Spencer Brown with a high upside athletic profile, you're way less likely to give up on a player like that early than someone else that you're stashing to develop in hopes that he can one day earn a job. So I'll just say this because this is the conversation. A lot of I Cover 1 peers like Greg, like Aaron, the smarter guys that are much smarter than me overall, they would say Spencer Brown hasn't done enough to basically be in a spot where the Bills should avoid adding an upgrade if an upgrade is possible. But my counter to that is, even though we all believe that Darnell Wright is an upgrade and some of the other guys that Broderick Jones and some of these other guys are an upgrade, if those guys aren't the ones available at 27, are you really upgrading someone? Are you really upgrading the position at 27 by adding one of those other guys? A lot of times it's easy to say like, oh, adding an offensive lineman in the draft is a safe addition, but that's not the case. We saw that with Cody Ford. It's not a safe thing. And the thing with Spencer Brown is, as much as he's left things to be desired from wanting more out of him, there are legitimate reasons that have contributed to him not playing up to the expectation level that we have desired out of him. He was playing hurt last year, and he did not get a full training camp healthy. He did not go into the regular season healthy, and that's going to impact you. Now, if there's a stud at 27, I'm not against it. I just think with the way that they've put this line together, where you have a stalwart at left tackle, where you have a solid center, where you added 2 starters at left guard, you already feel comfortable with your right guard. I don't think they need to go all in at right tackle at this point. And you look at some of the second-round guys. Could they get a Bergeron at 59? Could they get some of these other guys at 59? If they really value offensive line that much, I think they could still get someone that is close to some of the other guys that we've mentioned. And then you don't sacrifice a first-round pick at it. So I know that some of the other guys are going to disagree with me, but I don't think this line as it sits right now is bad. I really don't. I still think people are focused on the Cincinnati game, are focused on Roger Saffold just having a brutal season and thinking, God, we're going to have a repeat of this. But they're not taking into account a lot of the Bills' offensive woes weren't just offensive line. It was scheme. It was things that they were doing. It was the passing game. There was a lot of other issues that contributed to it. So you make some adjustments there. You don't necessarily need to get a stalwart right tackle to suddenly have a great offense. I think they could still have a great offense regardless of what they do.
Right. Yeah. And I'll make a quick argument for both sides just because I do see your side, Mike. I think it comes down to this at 27. It's going to depend how the board falls ultimately. Do you trust Spencer Brown, the guy you believed in to be your, right tackle because they started him last year? Do you believe in him to stay healthy for another season? And do you believe in him to, develop into the player they want him to be? Or do you, does a guy fall or a guy in the second round even come along and, win that job? That's the battle they're going to have to go with. I don't think it's the biggest need. I think linebacker and wide receiver, I would personally do, but I see both sides of it because obviously Spencer Brown was not, he didn't play well last year, and it's
that's why I'm okay in the second or third round, AJ, because I don't want Spencer Brown to just be given the job. I do want him to earn it.
Right.
But I also think you can get someone in the second round or maybe even a little bit later that could still push him to another level. And what if Spencer Brown comes out and balls during camp? You're going to – obviously, you can never have too many good offensive linemen. You want to have depth. But when we look at it, linebacker is a need on this team. They definitely need to address linebacker. Second round, first round possibility with that. Then wide receiver, we need to add someone in the slot. Now, I know the wide receiver group isn't as top-heavy as what normally most of these wide receiver classes have been recently, but that might actually play in the Bills' favor because what do the Bills really need right now? They need a slot. Who are these guys that are projected slot guys? You're talking about people that Zay Flowers. You're talking about Josh Downs. Those are guys – obviously Downs isn't a first-round talent, but you're talking about guys that could sit to where the Bills are picking. So when it comes to offensive line, if the right fit falls, go ahead. I'm just saying, don't feel like you have to take one just because we need to fix the offensive line. I think the Bills have fixed this offensive line. Losing, and I don't want to ever say this because it feels rude, but losing Saffold is going to be an addition by subtraction for the Bills based on how he played last year. And just getting some continuity, getting these guys together, I do think there's going to be improvement overall.
Right. And that's the argument, too, for keeping Spencer Brown on that right side is that continuity with Bates and Morris, assuming McGovern takes over the left guard spot. But Cromer loves, having continuity with his offensive line. I think bringing in a rookie day one next year next to Bates and Morris is a risk. So we'll see how it goes.
And I do want to address RJ quick. Kev, I'm sorry for taking over everything right now. I understand some analytics, some metrics will say they were bad last year. But you know what? Things vary on a year-to-year basis. And I don't want to just say, well, the unit was bottom 5 last year, so they're going to be bottom 5 this year. We've gone through each individual position. From left tackle to right guard, you feel pretty good about those guys overall, right? I mean, I don't see any fans clamoring for Deion Dawkins to be gone. I don't see any fans clamoring for Mitch Morse not to be the starter anymore. They added 2 starting left guards, 2 guys that have started for teams over the past couple years at left guard. Ryan Bates is someone I think fans going into last offseason wanted the Bills to bring back and re-sign. They didn't want him to go to Chicago or sign a contract somewhere else. So you're stuck with him. So when you look at the line, I don't think we're going to this line and being like, oh, they're going to be a bottom 5 unit. Like, could it play out that way? Yes. But if you're just asking me, let's go through each position. If Spencer Brown took a little bit of a leap forward this year, I think this is a good unit. I think they do the job. They're never going to be the greatest run blocking unit. But I think you accept that when you're a pass heavy team like the Bills. You sacrifice that for pass protection. Now they have to step up a little bit better, but there's other things that, like I said, you improve scheme and you improve with Allen in some aspects, and you should have better O-line results. Those aspects don't get discussed enough when we discuss the Bills' offensive line woes from last year. There were issues with the offense overall, despite their rankings.
Yeah, for sure, Mike.
Right now.
I think the interesting part of the interesting part about the O-line discussion is the center position. I'm really into adding a center, just like I am at the defensive tackle position, because I think you need to put some pieces in the puzzle for the center position. I like Ricky Stromberg from Arkansas. I think he could come in and be a round 4, 3rd to 4th round. That's about what I'm thinking for where I'd like to add to the interior of the offensive line, Mike.
What was that? Sorry, I this internet right now is, I apologize to everybody. Delays, internet connections breaking up. Can you just repeat that one more time, Kev?
Interior offensive line with Ricky Stromberg. Is that kind of someone that you would be targeting, like in the range that you would go with?
I mean, I don't really have a specific right now, Kev. When we're talking about offensive line, the guys I've been thinking about have been the Matthew Bergerons. If a Darnell Wright falls to 27, I'm open to that just because I believe he has that upside to be worthy, even going against my previous argument. But really, my focus really is waiting closer to the end of round 2, round 3. Ideally, I want to address the bigger needs first. This is not a draft that has a ton of offensive line depth overall. If you talk to the people that know what they're talking about, that scout this draft, it's not a very deep one. So it's kind of one of those difficult things, Kev. Two of the three positions the Bills probably would want to get somebody in the later rounds. There's not as many capable players at those spots. So you know how I work, Kev. I'm not really one that's going to throw out a lot of different names and a lot of different prospects. I'm open to the idea, but it really just depends on how the draft board plays out. I'm cool with some of those day 2 guys in the 2nd and 3rd round, but if a Bergeron's gone, if you start getting weak there, I'm not totally against what they already have on the line.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to think about. Like when I was going to head into the Senior Bowl, the big talk was Osiris Torrence. Like he was the talk of the guy that everyone wanted at 27 because that was before free agency started and all that stuff. I don't really think Bills fans, people even here at Cover One thought that they would address the interior line with such a substantial figure with Connor McGovern and also David Edwards. So I think going interior offensive line, I don't think they should even bother making a selection in the draft. If they do in the 6th or 7th round, like, okay. But I think interior offensive line is just, it's not really a need because you have Bates, who I think if he's your 5th best offensive lineman on the field every Sunday, that's fine. I like Connor McGovern and what he can bring to this team. He's young. He can still learn. And then obviously Edwards and behind him and Ike Bogger, who's coming off an injury, who when he played wasn't half bad. So they have 4 solid guys that can play football. And Tommy Doyle, who we just had on, said he could play every position. So there's another guy to add into the mix. There's a lot they can do with the offensive line, but I don't think wasting a pick. I think it'd be a waste of a pick to take one on the interior.
That's the thing I'm really struggling with, Kevin. Is we've been talking since that Cincy game about how they have to fix the O-line. They have to fix the O-line. And I feel like everyone is just feeling like they have to go all in on getting a right tackle. They have to get all these linemen. Like, that's not how you get better. Like, you don't just put random linemen in there and suddenly get good. You need continuity. You need guys that complement each other. You need guys that are going to fit on the line together. We've seen how many teams take big investments at O-linemen, get the wrong guy, and literally not get improvement from it. Just because you've heard about this guy in college and he's had success in the SEC or he's had success in the Big Ten doesn't mean he's going to get drafted by the Buffalo Bills at 27 overall or 59 overall and be a stud for us. Now, everybody acts like the Bills' offensive line is horrible. It is not horrible. I think that's the reason why I have disagreements right now with most people, is I think most people they can't get that Cincy game out of their head. They keep thinking, oh my God, this Bills offensive line is going to get Josh Allen killed. Well, you know what? With the Bills offensive line playing as bad as I could remember last year, they still had the second best offense in the league. They still ran for over 5 yards a carry. James Cook was close to 6 yards per carry at times last year. Even Devin Singletary was over 4.5 yards per carry. This was a team that ran the ball effectively. James Cook led the league in most 15-plus yards carries per ratio. So it's not like this offensive line is horrible. So, like, if you look at the grades on Pro Football Focus, they'll tell you that the Bills had one of the worst running grades for run blocking in the NFL last year. Yet the Bills' running grade overall was the top 2 in the NFL. So you're telling me the Bills' offensive line run blocking was one of the worst in the league, but yet Devin Singletary and James Cook, who no one will say were great last year, somehow led to the number 2 rushing graded offense in the league? That doesn't seem right. To me, it sounds like it's a unit that did have their struggles, did have their low moments at times, but also had some bright moments as well. When we break things down, where is the one position they could improve on the line? Right tackle. The difference between my point of view and everybody else's point of view, especially some of the guys in cover 1, is that I believe Spencer Brown could still be a good right tackle in the NFL. And because of that, I don't want to just put an asset in a first-round pick and basically force him out of a starting spot. Because if I already believe that he's capable of starting, why do I want to just force him out? That's where I'm standing. So it's not that we can't improve on that position. It's that I already think we have a guy that has the ability to start, and we haven't seen it yet. I am trusting the Bills' development. Aaron Kromer, who is known for coaching up players, getting the best. Didn't happen last year, but Aaron Kromer has a history of getting the best out of his line. We talked about it all offseason. I am banking that Aaron Kromer, with another year, can take Spencer Brown to the level that we need him to be successful. Now, if I'm wrong, you can always go back and draft a right tackle next year if you need one. I'm not against one in the middle rounds, as I stated earlier in the show. But I'm just not going to be all scared about it. I look at wide receiver, I look at linebacker as more pressing needs right now. And I look at both of those positions as positions where outside the first 2 rounds, are you really going to get somebody that's going to make a significant impact on your team going forward? Like, if the Bills don't get Campbell, Simpson, or Drew Sanders, who are they going to get at linebacker that could come in and start right away? I don't know. And at wide receiver, if they don't get a Downs, a Flowers, an Njigba, or an Addison, is there really many wide receivers that are going to come in the 3rd, 4th round and make an impact on this team? How are we improving in that point? Are we going to stash players again? Are we going to get another Khalil Shakir? I thought the point was to give competition to Khalil Shakir, give somebody else that can be a quality 3rd, 4th receiver. So to wrap up, Kev, because I know this is a long rant, I'm okay with adding an offensive lineman. I'm not okay with adding it at the expense of a more pressing need with a higher level caliber player. available at another position.
I don't disagree, Mike. I've been on team Spencer Brown for a while now. I went back and kind of analyzed the situation and checked the film. And to me, it was a matter of, I do think there's something in the tank. I think he played with a terrible back injury. From what I was told, his ability was, he was stiff and really gutted through an injury prone type of season. And for that, he gets another year. And I do believe he's beloved by Aaron Kromer and the rest of his offensive line. I see a lot of talk, Mike. We talked about this on the Going Deep podcast many times about the Kansas City offensive line metrics. The Bills, in a lot of ways, were better than Kansas City's offensive line in advanced metric throughout the regular season. I know we remember the zero blitz game against Miami, and we remember the Cincinnati snow game. We remember those scenarios. So something to keep in mind were the advanced statistics of the Bills' offensive line unit throughout the season. Wasn't perfect, but it had a better WAR, which is a stat that MLB uses to run their entire franchise. It had a better WAR than they did the Kansas City Chiefs. And everybody, it is actually quite opposite. The Chiefs line was anchored by Creed Humphrey. Outside of Creed Humphrey, they let their 2 tackles go. They're still seeing what they're going to do there. They signed one over from Jacksonville. So it's not this stud unit. It was just made up for another great year by Patrick Mahomes and his offensive coach. So I think it's something to keep in mind here that the Kansas City offensive line
were both pressured similar rates.
Yes. And there's stats that say Josh let himself into sacks this season at times. He was, I think, top 5 in most pressures caused by himself. That's how he plays. I'm not blaming him. I don't really care.
You're not allowed to say that, Kevin. Kevin, I'm legally required to tell you you're not allowed to say that. You will get your Bills Mafia fandom revoked and not be allowed to have this podcast anymore.
Rats. As one of the biggest Josh Allen supporters there is, I don't care though. That's the difference. I'm the one sitting here saying there's not this glaring problem. I thought they did a really good job replacing their weak link in Roger Saffold on the offensive line. They added 2 players there to get better. And if anything, sure, a little right tackle competition. Yeah, some center competition for down the road. But that's all I'm looking at, Mike.
Kev, they have addressed the offensive line in my perspective. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, they've added 2 guards. I'm not against drafting someone second, third round that could be depth or competition for someone. I'm just saying, unless if you're drafting one in the first round, he needs to be a stud. You need to have one of those big 3 fall to you at 27. If you're not getting one of the big 3 at 27, you're not upgrading your offensive line. That's what I'm trying to say. There's a few guys that are worthy of going at 27. If they're not there, you're not upgrading. So at that point, it's a moot point talking about upgrading your offensive line. You're not upgrading. And if the decision is a small slot receiver or a linebacker, at that point, yeah, you're still doing better because you're addressing a need. And I always laugh when people are like, oh, a small slot receiver can't make it work in the NFL. Have we not watched some of these guys in the league in recent years? You want athletes. You want guys that are special. You can be smaller and still do special things in the NFL. It's 2023 right now. It's not 1995. You don't get killed in the middle of the field for being small anymore. And the one thing I will have to say, too, if Pat Mahomes was playing behind the Bills' offensive line, do we think he would have some of the same struggles that Allen had? I don't know, because Mahomes got the ball out so quickly last year with his scheme, with the way Reed was coaching things up. It almost was a non-factor. Joe Burrow against the Bills in the playoffs didn't matter if our defensive line did get pressure on Joe Burrow because Burrow was releasing the ball so quickly that the offensive line really didn't have any trouble. A lot of times offensive line problems aren't necessarily the line. It's your scheme. Is the quarterback getting the ball out of his hands? Is he reading the blitzes? Is he reading defenses? I think it was a combination of a lot of things. Last year was one of those weird seasons where the Bills statistically improved big time offensively. There was a big leap, but we remember the end of the 21-22 season for how they had the shootout against New England and Kansas City, and we think, oh, their offense was great all of that year. It wasn't. The Bills had ups and downs in Dable's final season as offensive coordinator. They got a much better overall last year. The issues were at times, which wasn't often, they made some dumb plays or they weren't able to pick up a yard in a meaningful moment. We're talking about a team that went 13-3 last year. Nothing was truly ever as bad as what we say it was. The only thing I would really say that was frustrating and super maddening at times was really sometimes their red zone execution, their untimely turnovers, their some of those problems. Overall, like, it's hard for me to be super critical of a team that won 14 games and didn't have their fourth loss until the AFC divisional round.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, here's what it comes down to for me in the offensive line. They made the improvements that they needed to make, and anything else, and being said today, anything else they make is gravy. They feel like they're comfortable at every position. Do we believe that across the board? Probably not. Like, do we think they need a linebacker? I do. How aggressive will they get to replace linebacker? That's the question that remains to be answered. Is it a second? Is it a third? I like what the potential is from a Rapp and a Bernard style and a Spectre there too. So I don't think that they're forced to sign a linebacker or draft a linebacker early on in this draft. Just like they're not really forced to do it anywhere. But, I'm still team get Josh Allen weapons. We're going to talk about our final mock, and we're going to do a live mock here on the Cover One Going Deep podcast next Tuesday. We're going to do a live mock on Friday with Greg and his entire great content coming on Friday with 32 GMs from 32 different teams, all representing. I'll be the GM with Greg for the Bills. We already have some cool moves in place for that as well. So don't hesitate to tune in on Friday. We're looking forward to that live mock, but we're going to be doing one, AJ, Mike, and myself right here. And we're going to be talking everything next Tuesday leading up to the draft. All of our final positions that we're going to take, all of our final predictions, we're going to lock them in. We're going to clip them, and we're going to have them here for you next Tuesday. Looking forward to that show. And then the show Thursday, we're going to have some live draft coverage. Friday, we're going to have the pre-show here at the Going Deep podcast. We're going to tell you our favorite prospects. And then on Saturday, we're going to host day 3. We're going to host day 3 here live on our network. But Mike will be guest on day 1. I'll be guest on day 2 for the panel.
There's going to be so much going on for that draft. Like you said, we have our show at 7:00 2 days before. I'll be on 9 to 10 day 1. Day 2, the pre-draft. You're going to be on 8:30 to 10. Day 3, 12 to 4, I think we'll be on. So there's going to be a lot of good stuff. AJ, I'm sure we're going to get you around to get you some time on there as well. And you know what, guys? It's all okay that we have different opinions on this because that's what we want. If we all had the same opinions, then I would have a problem with that. It's okay to have different thoughts, different thinking processes. And if the Bills draft a right tackle in the first round, you know what? I'll find a way to support the pick. I'll be good with it. If they take a wide receiver, I'll support the pick. If they take a linebacker, I'll find a way. Like I could get mad at the pick and also find a way to support the individual that joins the team because that's what we do as fans. And you know what? Just go back to 2018. There's a lot of Bills Mafia that didn't want Josh Allen, and look at how that turns out. So all of what we're really saying about these prospects is mostly from other sources of people. Yes, we watch film. Yes, we watch highlights. But how many players are in college football on a yearly basis? And how many of them are we truly watching in depth? So however it plays out, we'll find a way to get behind it. And I'm sure Bean, McDermott, the Bills scouting staff, they have a lot better idea of these guys that they're going to go after than what all of us do. So,
yeah, Kevin, just before you wrap up, I just want to go back to that linebacker position real quick. I'm kind of with you, Kev. Like, I think there's a possibility they don't address it in the top 60. And I think there's a possibility that they go later. Just because, I don't think them re-signing AJ Klein and Trell Dodson and having Bernard on the roster is like indicative that they're not going to address the linebacker position. But at the same time, the thoughts come across more and more as we've gotten closer with Sean McDermott taking over the play calling. I think he's a very confident defensive play caller. He said it multiple times today. He was glowing talking about calling plays for this defense. And he likes familiarity with his players, and Dodson and AJ Klein have been there a while, and Balin Spector's another guy. So there's 4 guys on this roster that could potentially play that position, and I would not be surprised if they walk away with a 1 in the 4th round of Dorian Williams or something like that, and worry about that next year and just say, hey, we're gonna he has so many tools. He's got Taylor Rapp now. Poyer's back. You got 4 guys. You got a 3rd-round pick from last year. You got Dodson, who's familiar. So there's just so many ways this thing can go, and that's like why there's so much debate around what's going on and what the Bills are going to do in the draft is just because no one truly knows. Like they could stick with one of the 4 they have on the roster, or they could go and get a Jack Campbell. But I'm leaning right now towards maybe they don't go top 60. They bet on the guys that they re-signed, and they wait next year for maybe a deeper linebacker class because, unfortunately, I mean, this scenario where they lose Edmonds and then the linebacker class, where there's only 3 guys you can really get, and they're only getting first-round grades, it's just a tough spot it's just a tough spot overall.
Yeah. That's absolutely correct. I don't know who he mentioned that it wasn't as good as we thought and how many first round grades. There's no way the linebackers have them. So will the Bills trade back in this scenario? Maybe he's telling the truth for once that they will be trading back. But also he's posting trading back. Maybe that means it is the year he comes up and gets one of those first. He does like to leave with a first round talent.
Kev, he literally said it in the press conference. I was listening to it live. He goes, if I had to put my odds on it, like in Vegas, I'll trade back. But, come draft day, I'm antsy and pretty aggressive. So we'll see. So, like, what I mean? He's like, if I had to put odds on it, but like, what are you, plus 135? It's like, how close are you to act? Like, it's probably really close. I don't really think he's going to trade down more than he's going to trade. It's 50-50. It's whatever guy drops, whatever, it's how the board falls.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a crazy week. So we'll give you guys the benefit of tuning into all of the Cover One shows here this week from our sponsor, Sons of Erie, and the Bocce tournament coming soon in June. Registration links will be tweeting all month long how you can get in there, get a guest pass, $40, all you can eat and drink. It's going to be a riot to be in front of Tommy, Harrison Phillips, some Jim Kelly, some of the former players. It's going to be the best deal going. So make sure you check out the Bocce tournament, all registration links. And if you're good at bocce and you want to play against some NFL players, you can register for the Bocce tournament as well there on the website. We will get out tweets all week. And
link will be in description as well. Link will be in description.
Cool. Yeah, link will be in the description. Please smash the like button too. So do get a chance to meet some of these players and some former players and get out there and have a great time supporting a really good scholarship foundation as well in the Ilio DiPaolo. So really cool to be involved with that. We'll be there live too, Mike. I believe AJ will be coming. And
I'm doing the guest pass.
See, AJ's getting a guest pass. We're coming up. We're going to do a live show there too. So I'd love to interact with all you guys to get you there and talking all of your favorite questions and have a really cool live show there. So that'll be something to look forward to in June when the weather is nice. Speaking of the weather, but we have an NFL draft to accomplish first. And it came fast. I mean, I just remember saying it was 2 months away. It's crawling, and now it's just 9 days away. We'll know at least somewhat what the fate is, and will all that D-Hop stuff come true? All of our fans and friends in Spaces and everywhere else talking about D-Hop. Maybe they'll get their wish finally come true in the next 10 days. So that's something as well to keep an eye on. But really appreciate everyone tuning in. Special thanks, shout to Tommy Doyle for coming on for half an hour to give us some cool updates. And he's rehabbing really well, so we're looking forward to seeing him in training camp this year. Hopefully full strength. Hopefully Von Miller as well. So from the Going Deep podcast, Kevin Massare, Mike Bundt, we got producer AJ on today. But we're looking forward to draft coverage all next week. So tune into everything that we have. But that'll be a wrap from us, and we will catch you guys right here, 7:00 Tuesday, to go through our live mock next week. So we'll catch you guys soon, and go Bills.
Josh Allen looking deep, going deep.
To me, talking about the Bills, what else would you rather be doing?
We're hoping to add a new dimension to the Cover One network.
Slings it deep downfield, and it's caught inside the 20.
Right now, I just want to talk about this championship level. I've never had a championship caliber team to talk about.
I want to focus more on the storylines each week. What are the big stories going on with the Bills? What are thoughts, commentary? How do these things impact Buffalo?
Deep drop. Deep throw. And it is hauled in for the touchdown. Allen deep in the end zone and caught for a touchdown.